Yes, sir. So there is one third desert, which is in district Third Parker in Sindh. There is the Cholistan desert, which is in district Bahawalpur. There is the Thal desert in, I believe it's in district Pakar. And if you allow me for a fourth one, I think it's a cold desert in Skardu called Katpana.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Raza, tell me a little about IBA. You did your BBA from there. How did you benefit by it?
So starting with telling you about IBA. So IBA was basically established in 1950, and it was the first business school outside of North America, which gave it a huge distinction and it promoted the education of business in the country. About my experience at IBA, I think it has largely shaped my personality, especially because I hail from a rural background and I was not very proficient at a lot of things, including presentation skills, including my communication skills. Other than that, a key benefit that IB also gave me was that it promoted me in me a sense of critical thinking and analyzing things at a much deeper level rather than at a surface.
Right. My next question is, where do we stand with India recently in our relationship with India, Indo-Pak relations? What is the latest development? Where do we stand today?
So Indo-Pak relations, they have basically been strained after the Article 370 crisis. However, recently there has been a lot of improvement, especially by the use of back-channel diplomacy, where we have seen the ceasefire agreement that took place between the DGMOs of both countries, where we also see that there are minimal violations on the LOC. We have also seen the role of UAE in playing a gap of a bridge, in playing a role of a bridge between the two countries.
Right. What two main water bodies does the Suez Canal connect?
Sir, the Suez Canal, I believe it connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean.
Mediterranean. All right. What do you know about the nationalization of the Suez Canal? Tell me something about the nationalization of the Suez Canal.
Sir, the nationalization of Suez Canal, it basically took place in 1956 when the then Egyptian President Jamal Abdel Nasser basically nationalized the Suez Canal Authority, which was then owned by the British and the United Kingdom. It also engulfed a lot of crises after that. A hue and cry was raised by Britain as well as by French, and they were also planning to attack Egypt by allying with Israel. However, we see that the role of US in mediating this crisis had been really phenomenal, and it avoided a war that could have been really worse for both parties.
What was the exact date when it was nationalized? Do you know the exact date? Can you, or the year at least?
So the year was 1956, but I cannot recall the
date. All right. Are you updated about the latest Suez crisis? What happened?
Is it
this year?
The latest Suez crisis that took place in early this year, it was where a vessel, I believe it was called Evergreen vessel, it had blocked access of other ships into the Suez Canal because it's a very narrow strip, it's a very narrow body of water through which only one ship can pass at a time. So it had blocked a huge international trade that takes place.
It got stuck up over there. Yes. Right. Tell me something about the 12th Amendment in the US Constitution. Who gave it and when was it?
Sir, I cannot recall at the moment who gave the 12th Amendment.
All right, the first half.
Yes, the first half of the 12th Amendment basically relates to the process of the election of the US President and the US Vice President.
Can we elaborate a little on that?
So basically, after the election, there is an electoral college that is elected, and that electoral college basically votes out for each of the president, and it's not necessary for that electoral college to vote based on their political party, and that's how they elect the U.S. president.
And the vice president also simultaneously. Each member has 2 votes. Right. Abraham Lincoln, he abolished slavery. Was he successful in doing it?
Sir, he played a great role in the abolition of slavery, especially when he introduced the 13th Amendment into the Congress. However, because of his assassination, he could not live enough to see that being ratified and being implemented. I believe it was Andrew Johnson who saw that happening during that time.
But the discrimination against the blacks continued after that.
Definitely.
Do you
sir.
agree with me?
Absolutely, sir. The civil rights movement of 1963, the struggle of Martin Luther King, the struggle of Rosa Parks, Miss Rosa Parks, these are all basically that took place because of that inherent discrimination against the African Americans that was still existing in the society.
Right. All right. My last 2 questions relate to economics. What is the per capita income of Pakistan?
So the per capita income of Pakistan last year,
Pakistan.
it was $1,355, $1,355.
And what do you understand by circular debt?
So circular debt, it is basically an amalgamation or an overburdening of debts when you are unable to pay, when a certain party in a chain is unable to pay their dues, mainly because of cash problems or because of the cash crunch that they face. For example, in Pakistan, this basically relates towards the energy sector, where the discos are not able to pay the generation companies, and the generation company is not able to pay the fuel supplier companies, and this cycle goes on and on. Because of that, a huge debt of almost 2.6 trillion has accumulated in the country, which is very difficult to be paid off at a very nice rate.
All right. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Raza, thank you very much.
So it was a pleasure.
All right, let's have a discussion amongst ourselves. Shahid sir, your views.
Thank you, sir. I found him a very articulate personality. He was exceedingly dressed in a very amiable, spoke in a very amiable way, engaged the panel well in a meaningful and productive way. His knowledge with regard to various issues is also commendable, and overall, I think his assessment, according to my point of view, is that it ranges between 60 to 70%. One particular shortcoming which I noticed, that was with regard to his movement of hands, that he needs to curtail or at least moderate.
I have already noted
That is one of the basic issues. Especially his knowledge with regard to, one further point which I observed that was with regard to analytical skills, especially on my question with regard to Urdu-Hindi controversy. He spoke very well, and I was really impressed. Considering and taking cognizance of all the points, I would rate him between 60 to 70% out of total 100. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Young, smart person, very well dressed. He spoke very well, but somehow, at some point of time, he had a little problem of fluency also at some places. But generally, he spoke well. He had very good knowledge about his subjects, general knowledge, and overall, his knowledge is also very good. He could analyze certain very important national issues, economic issues, and other issues very well. And his, I think, critical analysis led him to some good conclusions also. And he was logical. He was quite confident, composed, and he could sustain pressure also, because very difficult questions were put to him, particularly of national and international importance. So from that point of view, if I rate him, he is a very good candidate and should be around overall 78%.
Thank you. Ashram sir.
Ji, thank you. Overall, I think his performance in the interview was good. He had a good general knowledge, good command and fluency in English, he could engage in discussion on different issues. But he had this superfluous use of, he kept on repeating, I believe.
I believe.
Instead of, you see, differentiating his opinion, where you can use the word I believe. But about facts, you can't say I believe. He was overusing that.
As he said while answering your question
Yes.
about the Suez Canal,
Ji.
I believe it connects the Red Sea to the Mediterranean. It's a fact. It's not a theory. So
Exactly.
you don't need to use the
Exactly,
word I believe.
exactly. So that shows that he wasn't sure about. That gives the impression that one is not sure, although he was clear about it. There is no second opinion about it. And then again, he was overusing the phrase, allow me to guess. He shouldn't have overused this. Otherwise, he was a little nervous in the beginning. Then he regained his confidence and composure. And I would really rate him 70, give him 70 marks out of 100.
Okay, thank you. Now let me start with the negatives. 3 things I observed. You agree with me that he was overusing the phrase I believe. आपने नोट किया हैंड जेस्चर्स, एक्सेसिव मूवमेंट थी उसके थोड़े हैंड जेस्चर्स की. नॉर्मली हम कहते हैं आप इधर उनको अपनी लैप में रखें. तीसरा, हिज आई कॉन्टैक्ट वाज नॉट वेरी गुड. बात इनके साथ कर रहा है, देख नीचे रहा है. आई कॉन्टैक्ट मेरे नज़दीक तो यू गॉट टू लुक इन द आइज ऑफ द पर्सन हु यू आर टॉकिंग टू एंड ऑल्सो एंगेज द रेस्ट ऑफ द पैनलिस्ट. ये 3 चीज़ें थी. अदरवाइज आई फाउंड हिम full of confidence, very well composed, and on a number of issues, on a majority of the issues, he managed to engage the panel very well and in a meaningful manner. Good knowledge base, and where he knew the answers, he was focused and his